I am Brian Foster, a plumber in Scranton. I don't have a job worth bragging about, just the guy people call when pipes leak, when basements flood, when everything in a house starts falling apart. The work is enough to feed my family, but never enough to make me feel secure about the future. I stepped out of my old pickup truck, the back of my shirt soaked with sweat after a long day fixing pipes at an industrial shop on the edge of Scranton. At just 38, I felt like I'd aged a decade, my body aching from head to toe, my hands so calloused that I sometimes couldn't remember what softness felt like. It was already pitch dark, the cold October Pennsylvania wind cutting through my collar, but all I wanted was to get home, where Kira, my wife, and Nora, my daughter, were waiting. Thinking about them eased my fatigue a little, as if simply opening the door and stepping inside would make everything better. Our house was in a modest neighborhood, nothing fancy, nothing standout, but to me, it was home. A familiar place with the kitchen light on every evening, the smell of simple food and a routine that was repetitive but safe. At least, that's what I believed until the moment I slid the key into the lock and pushed the door open. And in that instant, I immediately sensed something was wrong. The house was shrouded in darkness. Not a single light was on as usual. I didn't hear Nora's sounds nor Kira clattering in the kitchen. And most importantly, I didn't smell the familiar dinner aroma, the scent of stew or toasted bread that she usually prepared each evening. I froze for a moment and strained to listen. The space around me was completely silent except for the wind whistling through the window cracks and my heart pounding in my chest. I tried to reassure myself that maybe Kira was tired and had turned off the lights to rest early, though the unease inside me quietly spread. I set my tool bag down on the floor. The clank of the equipment echoed in the stillness. My hand fumbled for the living room light switch and flipped it on. The dim yellow light illuminated the room, but it still felt as cold as a tomb. The sofa was empty, the TV off, not a trace of life. The kitchen beyond was stone cold, no warmth from the oven or a pot simmering on the stove. Everything was so still that I could clearly hear my own breathing. I called out to my wife loudly, my voice echoed in the empty space. No answer. I called a few more times, louder, but only silence replied. My heart began beating faster. Normally, if Kira was running late, she would text or call. But today, my phone had been silent all day. Maybe she went to the store for groceries, I told myself. Kira rarely came home late, but sometimes she liked to surprise us with something new. What about Nora? She usually sat in the corner with her toys, but now, not a sound. I walked slowly into the kitchen, trying to stay calm, but my limbs felt heavy as lead. I turned on the kitchen light. The harsh white glow fell on the dining table, and that's when I saw it. A letter placed neatly in the center. A pristine white envelope with no address. My heart sank like it had fallen into a deep pit. Why a letter? We lived together. Why write one? A bad premonition hit me, icy cold like a bucket of water poured over my neck. My hands trembled as I picked up the letter. The envelope was thin, the handwriting was Kira's. Those familiar strokes I once loved, now somehow so alien. I tore it open, my hands shaking so much I nearly ripped the paper inside. Taking a deep breath, I read while holding my breath, as if exhaling would shatter everything. Brian, I've sat in front of this page for a long time, not knowing where to begin. Lately, I've felt myself slowly draining away, as if every breath is heavier than the last. The pressure from work, from life, from the same things repeating day after day. It's gone on too long, to the point where I no longer recognize myself. I'm exhausted, Brian. Not because of you, and not because of Nora. You and our daughter have never done anything wrong. It's just that I no longer have the strength to keep living in this feeling of deadlock, like standing before a wall so high I can't see a way out. I've tried. I really have tried so hard. But the more I try, the more I feel myself disappearing. And if I stay, I'm afraid I won't be the person you and our child need anymore. So I have to leave, not to escape you both, but to save myself before everything gets worse. Please keep living and take care of Nora in my place. She needs you, and you've always been her strongest support. I love you both. But this time I have to choose myself, Kira. The lines danced before my eyes, blurred through the tears welling up. No blame, no accusations, just a cold admission as if she had prepared for this long ago. Where had she gone? Why like this? My heart raced wildly, my mind spun. In panic, I rushed into the bedroom, shoving the door so hard the hinges creaked. The closet. I flung it open and the cold emptiness stared back. Kira's clothes were completely gone. Jackets, dresses, shoes. Everything vanished. Only empty hangers remained, dangling like reminders of her departure. This can't be. My wife wouldn't leave without any reason, I muttered, my hands rummaging through the closet as if hoping it was just a dream. But no, it was painfully real. The once familiar room now felt alien and cold. I hurried to our daughter's room, heart pounding like war drums. Nora was curled up on her bed, clutching the old pillow she loved. Her eyes were blank, emotionless, unresponsive to my presence. She's autistic, so such expressions weren't unusual, but today it cut like a knife into my heart. I felt drained of all strength, collapsing onto the floor, my mind reeling. Not from anger or resentment. I couldn't be angry at Kira because I understood part of her suffering. But the vague fear about the future was different. Raising Nora alone, in a house that had just lost its warmth. She needed special care, the kind of patience I sometimes lacked myself. How would I manage? Work, money, the nights Nora cried endlessly, all of it flooded my mind. I sat there, looking at Nora, and tears rolled down my cheeks. That night dragged on like a prolonged nightmare. I lay beside Nora, unable to sleep, just listening to her steady breathing while my heart felt heavy. The next morning, as sunlight peeked through the curtains, I forced myself to get up. There was no other choice. Kira was gone and life didn't wait for anyone. I glanced at the clock, 5 a.m. Normally, Kira would wake up earlier than me, preparing things for Nora. Now it was just me. My limbs heavy, I shuffled into the kitchen, trying to make a simple breakfast. Toasted bread with peanut butter, the one thing Nora liked, or at least didn't refuse. But that day, she sat motionless, staring at the plate without touching it. I encouraged her to eat, forcing a smile. Nora didn't respond. Her gaze was vacant, as if she were in another world. My heart tightened. This was only the beginning. From the day Kira left, my life was completely upended. The old routine collapsed almost overnight. Before, we shared the household tasks. Kira handled Nora, I handled earning money. Now everything piled onto my shoulders like a mountain weighing me down. I had no time to breathe, to process the pain of loss. Every day was a battle for survival, anxiously waiting to see if Nora would be okay that day. If work would go smoothly, if there would be enough money. It was dramatic in its own way. Not like an action movie, but with simmering tensions that built up gradually, making me feel like I was about to explode at any moment. Let me tell you about a typical morning so you can understand the hardship. I wake up very early, usually around 4:30, before the alarm even rings. First, I check on Nora. She often wakes up in the middle of the night, sitting curled up alone. If I'm lucky, she's sleeping soundly. If not, I have to soothe her for hours. Then I prepare her clothes, choosing soft outfits with no irritating tags because Nora is sensitive to even the smallest things. Breakfast has to be just right, not too hot, not too cold, presented exactly the same as every other day to avoid upsetting her. I check every little detail, her school bag, shoes, even the scent of the soap, because a single small change can make Nora scream, cry uncontrollably, and convulse. Today will be okay, I tell myself. But my heart is full of worry. Will she put on her clothes? Will she eat breakfast? Those questions make my heart pound like waiting for a time bomb. After dropping Nora off at school, a special school for autistic children in Scranton, I dive into work. Plumbing isn't always steady. Some days are busy, others dead quiet. But now I can't pick and choose. I fix pipes in homes and industrial shops, sweating profusely, body aching. Colleagues joke, "Brian, you're a single dad superhero now." But behind my forced smile, I know they don't understand. In the afternoons, I always have to leave earlier than others to pick her up on time. My boss, Mike, a grumpy middle-aged guy, was understanding at first. "You'll get through it. It's family stuff." But gradually that sympathy ran dry. "Brian, if you leave early one more time, I'm cutting your shifts," he yelled when I asked for the third time in a week. I bowed my head, swallowed my frustration, and rushed to the school. Heart racing. Would Nora be okay in class today? Had the teacher called with any issues? Back home, everything was a whirlwind, like a never-stopping machine. I picked up Nora. She walked silently beside me, no hug or smile. Then cooking. Familiar dishes cut small, arranged in the exact positions on the plate. With autism, Nora's eating is unpredictable. Some days she eats well, but others she refuses even familiar food. Pushes the plate away and cries. "Why won't you eat? Did Daddy do something wrong?" I ask, voice trembling, but she never answers. She never does. My daughter doesn't speak, doesn't respond to smiles or hugs. I often fall into helplessness, sitting and watching her, not knowing what she needs. Everything is vague, far more stressful than with a typical child. If Nora were neurotypical, it would just be physical exhaustion, cooking, cleaning, laundry. But with her, every action is a challenge, a gamble. Suddenly she might panic over the vacuum cleaner noise, bright lights, or just a strange smell. In those moments, my heart stops. I gently hold her, repeating familiar soothing words. "Daddy's here. It's okay, don't be scared." But sometimes she pushes me away and screams, and I can only sit and watch, tears streaming down. Evenings are hell. After cleaning up and laundry the piles of clothes because Nora often spills food, I finally get a break. But rest doesn't mean sleep. Sleepless nights chain together like a string of nightmares. Nora often cries or screams for no reason in the middle of the night. Once she woke at 2 a.m., shrieking through the house, convulsing. I stayed up all night watching over her, soothing her, holding her until she calmed. "Why are you crying?" "What did Daddy do wrong?" I whispered, but only cries answered. The next morning, I still had to go to work exhausted, eyes dark-circled, body drained. Colleagues asked, "What's wrong, Brian? You look like a zombie." I forced a smile. "I'm fine, just a bit tired." But inside, fear surged. Would I drop a tool today? Cause an accident? The pressure piled up, making everything more tense than ever. Beyond daily caregiving, I had to arrange 2 to 3 days off work each week to take Nora to therapy. The cramped clinics in downtown Scranton filled with children and weary parents. I waited hours watching Nora in the room with the doctor, hoping for progress. But therapy costs kept rising. $200 per session plus medication and aids. Income from plumbing was unstable. Some months busy at $3,000, others just $1,500. I constantly calculated every small expense, saving gas by walking, buying discounted food, even skipping meals to save for her. Only $500 left in the account, I thought, heart racing as I checked bills. Would we make rent this month? Debt started piling up like a snowball rolling downhill. At work, things got worse. Sympathy faded. Management grew critical. Mike often called me in. "Brian, if you're late one more time, I'm docking pay. Work doesn't wait for your family." I explained about Nora, about autism, but he just shook his head. "Everyone has problems, but you need discipline at work." Every early departure felt like walking a tightrope, anxiously waiting to see if I'd get scolded today. The pressure from childcare, finances, and work left me increasingly exhausted, mentally crumbling. Some nights, lying alone, I cried quietly. What am I going to do? I can't keep going like this. Finances slid toward ruin, and I had nowhere to turn. I was alone in that whirlwind, anxiously awaiting the breaking point. When finances could no longer hold out, I was forced to consider taking on evening work. The thought had been haunting me for weeks, like a ghost that refused to leave. Extra plumbing shifts at people's homes or odd jobs at factories, anything to earn a few $100 more. But the biggest problem was Nora. I couldn't leave her home alone even for a few hours. She's autistic and prone to sudden panic attacks. Without someone there, things could turn disastrous. I imagined Nora curled up by herself screaming because of the howling wind or the darkness, and my heart tightened. No, I couldn't take that risk. I had already lost Kira. I couldn't lose Nora too through my own carelessness. The cost of hiring a babysitter or extended care was beyond my means. I had already calculated it. A reputable caregiver in Scranton charged at least $15 an hour, plus travel fees and emergency rates. With my current income, I could barely cover rent, food, and Nora's therapy. Adding that expense would mean going hungry next month. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the pile of bills, my heart pounding. Is there another way? I asked myself, hands trembling as I held the pen to recalculate. After many sleepless nights weighing my options, lying awake until dawn, I decided to turn to my parents as a last resort. My parents, Jackson and Ashlyn Foster, lived in Old Forge, Pennsylvania, just a 15-minute drive from Scranton. Close enough that I could pick Nora up every evening after an extra shift. I hesitated a lot. Our relationship wasn't good. They had once criticized Nora as a different child. But now, I was out of options. This was my final lifeline, however fragile. The next morning, after dropping Nora at school, I drove to my parents' house. It was drizzling, the highway slippery, and I drove slowly, filled with anxiety. My old truck rattled and groaned, mirroring my mood. Old Forge was a small, quiet town with old wooden houses and friendly neighbors, at least on the surface. My parents' house was at the end of the street, painted white, with a front yard holding a few wilted bushes as winter approached. I parked, took a deep breath, and tried to stay calm. My heart beat faster as I stepped onto the porch and knocked. Will they help me? The thought made me nervous, like awaiting a verdict. The door opened and my father, Jackson, stood there, hair completely white, face wrinkled with age. He was 65, a former coal miner now retired on a meager pension. "Brian, what are you doing here at this hour?" he asked, voice surprised but not warm. My mother, Ashlyn, peeked from the kitchen, dish towel in hand, eyes slightly narrowed. She was 62, her health frail due to arthritis. My appearance at that time surprised them, but they didn't ask many questions or show concern. No hug, no warm invitation inside. Just, "Come in and talk, it's cold out there." I stepped inside. The smell of stale coffee lingered, the house unchanged, old furniture, the TV tuned to local news. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. I didn't beat around the bush. I no longer had the energy for meaningless small talk. I went straight to the point, slowly explaining my current situation. Kira had left. I was the sole caregiver for Nora. Plumbing work barely kept us afloat, and therapy costs for her were rising. Right now, I need to take evening shifts to cover extra expenses, I said, my voice lowering though my heart raced. Otherwise, I really don't know how to manage. I'm just asking if you could watch Nora for a few hours each evening. I'll pick her up right after my shift. It's only temporary until I get through this period. I looked up at them, waiting for even a softening glance, a sign they understood how desperate I was. But there was nothing. Jackson immediately objected. He leaned back in his chair, face reddening with irritation, voice hard and decisive. "No way, Brian. Your mother and I have no experience caring for an autistic child. That kid, she's strange. Always crying, always screaming, not like normal children." He paused, then continued, voice full of annoyance. "I don't want to deal with nosy neighbors and their gossip. What do you think they'll say when they see us watching a child like that? The Fosters taking care of a weird grandchild. I don't want to live with that feeling." Each word struck my chest like a knife. The phrase "weird child," that's what he called Nora, his own granddaughter. I tried to swallow the lump in my throat, but before I could speak, my mother, Ashlyn, chimed in. She spoke in an even, cold tone, eyes avoiding mine. "Your father's right, Brian. We're old now. Our health isn't what it used to be. I have constant joint pain. Your father's blood pressure fluctuates. We can't take on any more responsibility." She twisted her old wedding ring as if discussing someone else's problem. You should handle your own family. You can't rely on us forever. I felt blood rush to my face. My ears rang. I tried to keep my voice low, though my heart felt like it was shattering. But Mom, Dad, it's just a few hours. I'll explain everything. Nora isn't as difficult as you think. She just needs quiet and someone nearby. I promise I'll pick her up right away, no burden on you. I started pouring it out, no longer able to stay calm. I told them about the sleepless nights when Nora panicked, the therapy bills piling up on the table, the constant fear that one day I wouldn't be able to care for her anymore. I spoke like I was begging, clinging to the last thread, but they sat there, silent, faces impassive. No one looked at me. No one interrupted and no one showed any emotion. They listened as if hearing a stranger's story. Then Jackson shook his head, voice louder and heavier. You're foolish, Brian. It's because you're weak that you're in this mess. Why didn't you hold on to your wife tighter? She stayed with you all those years after the kid was born. That's already more loyalty than most. Kira leaving is understandable. He lightly tapped the table. Who could stand living a lifetime with a child like that? No one could endure it. It's like an invisible burden dragging you down forever, down to hell. Ashlyn nodded, voice still even but each word ice cold. I told you before, having an autistic child is big trouble, now you bear it yourself. Those words echoed in my head like thunder. I sat frozen. Nora, my 8-year-old daughter, their granddaughter, was called a burden. My heart ached sharply, my eyes stung, but I clenched my teeth to keep from crying in front of them. The feeling of being cut off from my last support hit hard, like someone pushing me to the edge of a cliff. I sat there, hands clenched until they shook, mind reeling with one thought. How could they say that about my child? They're my parents. The conversation ended decisively. Jackson stood. Enough. Go home. Don't come back begging for that again. Your mother and I can't help. Ashlyn just nodded, not even seeing me to the door. I stumbled out of the old house, legs heavy, feeling like I had just lost another family. The rain fell harder, stinging my face coldly. I got in the truck, hands trembling as I turned the key, tears streaming down. What do I do now? There's no one left. That thought filled me with anxiety and fear. On the drive home, I drove slowly, remembering the past, childhood days when my parents were strict but loving. And now, they had turned their backs on their granddaughter. My heart raced as if awaiting the next disaster. Unable to rely on my parents and unable to take evening shifts, I began considering short-term loans just to get through the days, even though I knew deep down it wasn't a long-term solution. I sat at the kitchen table late at night, staring at the pile of bills, phone in hand, scrolling through quick loan apps. Just $500, I told myself, heart pounding as I hit the apply button. The interest rates were sky high, but I was out of options. The money hit my account a few hours later, enough to cover Nora's therapy bill for this month. But every time I thought about the repayment date, I lost sleep, lying awake imagining calls from the bank demanding payment, or worse, losing the house. That fear hung over me like a dark shadow, making everything more tense. Would I be able to pay next month? Or would it all collapse? I gritted my teeth and endured, telling myself I had to hold on until I found another way out, but the financial and emotional pressure slowly wore me down bit by bit. Every morning I woke up, body heavy, eyes ringed with dark circles from short nights. Work remained the same, fixing pipes drenched in sweat, but now I did it like a machine, with no energy left to joke with colleagues. The pressure was like an overinflated balloon waiting to burst. I tried to keep the routine for Nora, picking her up and dropping her off on time, cooking the right meals, but every action felt burdensome, like dragging a boulder. The prolonged exhaustion changed my mindset. I grew irritable, no longer patient enough to tune into her emotions as before, no longer strong enough to try understanding Nora's silent reactions. In the past, I always observed her closely, checking if her eyes looked tired, hungry, or if she just needed to sit quietly. Now I was more rushed, doing things half-heartedly. I urged Nora to eat in a curt voice when placing the plate in front of her, without waiting for her response. She stared at the plate, still not touching it, but I just sighed and turned away to clean up. My heart ached, but fatigue overshadowed everything. In those moments I wondered, what am I turning into? Fear crept in, that I was pushing Nora further away, but I didn't have the strength to stop. There were times I didn't ask what Nora needed, didn't try to connect, just went through the motions to get things done. Mornings, hurriedly preparing her things without looking into her eyes. Afternoons, picking her up, driving in silence, no longer telling stories like before. Nora sat in the back, clutching her bag, gaze distant. I knew she needed that connection, but my mind was full of worries, debts, work, bills. Boss yelled at me again today, I thought, gripping the steering wheel. The distance between us grew, like a silent crack spreading wider. Nora became more guarded, less approaching me, often curling up in her familiar corner of the living room, hugging her pillow as if to protect herself. Before, she used to sit beside me on the sofa, even if silent. Now she avoided it, and each time I saw that, my heart tightened. Is she afraid of me now? That thought made me anxious, like waiting for an explosion. On nights when Nora screamed for no reason, I just stood watching from afar, no longer strong enough to go over and soothe her as before. One night she woke around midnight, shrieking through the house, convulsing. I stood at the door, so exhausted my feet wouldn't move. She's at it again, I thought, voice full of weariness. Instead of rushing to hold her and sing lullabies as usual, I just watched, waiting for her to calm down on her own. Nora cried until her voice was hoarse, then gradually fell silent, curling up under the blanket. I went back to bed, lying awake, blaming myself. In those moments, a terrifying thought began creeping in. Maybe Kira left because she couldn't bear this endless deadlock and burden. I remembered her letter. She had said she was exhausted. Now I understood, because I was too. How am I any different from Kira? That thought cut like a knife, filling me with fear, that I too might give up and leave Nora alone. The distance between us grew as Nora became more wary, less approaching, often curling up in her familiar corner as if to protect herself. She started avoiding my touch, pushing my hand away when I tried to hug her. "Sweetie, let Daddy hug you," I said, but she turned away, sitting huddled. My heart ached sharply, but exhaustion made me stop trying. I began blaming work, money, Kira. Why has everything turned out like this? I thought, lying alone late at night. Anxiety surged. Did Nora still trust me? Or was she afraid of her own father? That day, my manager chewed me out harshly over a small mistake. It was Friday. I was fixing pipes at a client's house but forgot to check a valve, and water flooded the floor. My boss called and yelled, "Brian, what the hell are you thinking? A stupid mistake like this could lose us a customer. You want to get fired?" His voice echoed in my head the whole drive home. The injustice and fatigue left me returning home in a heavy mood, like carrying a rock on my chest. I opened the door. Nora was sitting in her corner, but I didn't smile, just trudged into the kitchen. "What a terrible day," I muttered, slamming my bag down hard on the table. That evening, Nora refused to eat, unresponsive to my calls, which only heightened my helplessness and irritability. I placed the plate in front of her and snapped for her to eat, my voice louder than usual. Nora looked at the plate, pushed it away, food spilling. "Why won't you eat?" "Daddy's so tired," I said, voice harsh. She curled up but didn't cry, just sat still. My heart raced, anger rose, not at her but at everything. I cleaned up hastily, hands shaking, mind spinning. When bedtime came and she still wouldn't settle, the emotions pent up for weeks suddenly exploded. Nora ran around the room, refusing to get into bed, hands flapping as if in panic. "Lie down and sleep right now," I shouted, voice echoing through the house. I paced the room with frantic movements, unconsciously making everything chaotic, kicking a chair, slamming my hand on the table, loud bangs ringing out. Why won't you listen? Daddy's exhausted. The words poured out like a flood full of anger. My heart pounded as if about to burst. Nora panicked, quickly scrambling into bed, clutching her old stuffed bear, burrowing deep under the blanket as if hiding from the outside world. She trembled, eyes wide with fear. Seeing it, I froze, collapsing to my knees on the floor, realizing that terrified look in her eyes was something I never wanted to see. Oh God, what have I done? That thought struck like lightning. Tears welled up. I blamed myself for lacking strength, for not being resilient enough to raise her, only knowing how to blame circumstances and vent anger on an innocent child. Nora, my innocent girl who needed only patience, was now terrified of me. My heart ached sharply. Anxiety built. Would she forgive me? Or was this crack irreparable? I slowly approached the bed, hands trembling, afraid a wrong move would panic her more. I'm sorry, Daddy's a bad father. I made Mommy leave, I whispered, voice breaking. I didn't hug her, just sat beside the bed, keeping distance, gently placing my hand on the blanket. Daddy's here now. I won't yell anymore. I'll just sit here doing nothing, I said, clumsy, soothing words, repeating the familiar rhythm, slow, steady, like an old lullaby. I patiently waited for Nora's breathing to slow. She still trembled, but gradually calmed. I sat there for hours, tears streaming down, vowing to myself that from now on I had to change. In the days that followed, to make amends for the mistake of that evening, I actively changed how I cared for her, trying to slow down, observe more, and not force Nora to respond, but instead learn to follow her rhythm. I realized I had let exhaustion take control, turning me into a terrible version of myself. No more harsh words, no more rushed movements. Every morning I woke up earlier, sitting by Nora's bed, waiting for her to wake naturally. Today I'll do better, I told myself, heart racing with anxiety. Would Nora notice the change? Or was the crack between us too deep? I observed her closely. The way she held the spoon, the way she gazed out the window, the small gestures I had overlooked before. No forcing her to speak, no barrage of questions. Just being there so she knew Daddy was still a safe place. The fear of failure crept in, making every action feel dramatic, like walking a tightrope, waiting to see if Nora would respond. I began building small but consistent habits, eating with her on time, keeping the space quiet, dimming the lights when she was stressed, and staying close enough for her to feel safe without pressure. Before, meals were battles. I hurriedly tried to feed her. She pushed away. Now I sat across from her, eating slowly, saying nothing, just gently pointing to the plate. Eat nicely for Daddy, okay? I said softly, then fell silent. The house gradually grew quieter. I turned off the TV, lowered the radio volume, leaving the space filled only with the faint wind whistling through the window cracks. Whenever Nora started getting tense, her eyes darting rapidly, I dimmed the lights more, drew the curtains tighter, creating a warm, familiar dark corner for her. I knew she was tired, so I gently placed a blanket over her shoulders, keeping just enough distance, not touching directly so she wouldn't panic. Those small habits were like a fragile thread holding father and daughter together. Yet every day that passed, I remained endlessly anxious. Would Nora eat today? Would she have a meltdown? The weight of what had happened still pressed heavily on me, making me constantly fear that one small mistake would cause everything to collapse. I grew more patient when Nora was silent, no longer asking rapid questions, just sitting nearby and doing familiar things so she knew I was still there. One afternoon, Nora was curled up in the corner of the room, hugging her stuffed bear. Instead of pulling her out, I sat a few steps away, holding a book and reading in an even tone. She didn't look, but I noticed her shoulders relax a little. She feels me, I thought, heart-warming yet mixed with worry. Those moments accumulated like building a fragile bridge. But night after night, the memory of that explosive evening haunted me. Nora's fearful eyes cutting like a knife. I can't let it happen again, I reminded myself, lying awake, anxiously awaiting dawn to keep trying. One day, in the middle of a job, I unexpectedly received a call from Nora's teacher. My heart tightened, mind going blank with fear that something had happened to her, or she had caused trouble. It was during a plumbing repair at an old house on the outskirts of Scranton. The phone vibrated in my pocket. I wiped my mud-covered hands and looked at the screen. The school. Heart pounding, blood rushing to my head. What's wrong with Nora? Is she hurt? The worst thoughts flashed. Panic attack, fall, or worse. I answered, voice trembling. Has something happened to my Nora? The teacher, Mina Park, spoke calmly. It's nothing serious, Mr. Bryan. I just want to talk about Nora. Can you come to the school? Those words didn't fully dispel the worry, but enough for me to breathe a sigh of relief. Heart still racing, I asked to leave early, ignoring my manager's annoyed glare and harsh reminder. Mike yelled, Again, Bryan. Work doesn't wait for you. I bowed my head. Sorry, boss, it's a family matter. Then I rushed to the car, driving to the school covered in sweat and grime, hands and feet still dirty from work. On the way, I imagined all sorts of things. Nora hitting someone, or sick. The anxiety made me grip the wheel tightly, driving faster than usual. Meeting the teacher, Mina Park, and learning Nora wasn't in serious trouble, I finally breathed easier. The tension weighing on me the whole drive gradually lifted. Mina was a young teacher, around 30, with long black hair tied neatly, bright eyes, and a warm smile. She taught the special class for autistic children, and I had met her a few times when picking up Nora. Mr. Bryan, please sit down. Let's talk about Nora, she said, leading me to a small office with the faint smell of paper and crayons. Nora is doing very well right now. Don't worry too much. Those words lifted a huge weight from my chest. I sat down, wiping sweat, trying to stay calm. But my heart still raced. Why the sudden call? Was something serious? Mina gently handed me several drawings, saying they were what Nora had created in class recently. I froze, surprised and awkward. On the A4 sheets were scribbled lines, blue mixed with red. Strange shapes resembling twisted trees or blurry faces with indistinct features. Are these really drawings by my daughter? I asked again, unable to hide my astonishment. At home, she rarely picked up a pencil, usually just sitting silently staring into space. Mina nodded, voice gentle. Yes. Lately, I've noticed her drawing more and very focused. I held the drawings, examining them closely, trying to find something familiar. But as a manual laborer like me, a plumber, they were just chaotic patches of color following no clear pattern. I hesitated for a long time before saying softly, as if afraid of being wrong. They look kind of beautiful, don't they? After saying that, I suddenly realized I didn't fully understand why I said it, only that deep inside I felt those seemingly random scribbles were hiding something I hadn't yet named. As a blue-collar worker, I looked at those drawings without grasping their value, seeing only strange colors and shapes, until Mina explained that she had observed and recognized Nora's special talent for painting. Mr. Bryan, Nora isn't just doodling. She has her own way of expressing. These lines convey her emotions. I've seen her focus for long periods and have fewer meltdowns when drawing. Mina's words opened up a new world. I was stunned, heart racing. Nora had talent? My silent autistic child had a gift? I remembered times she scribbled at home, but I thought it was just play. Now Mina said it was special. Anxiety surged. Was this an opportunity for her, or just an illusion? Mina suggested seriously discussing extra lessons and development for Nora, not to chase achievements, but to help her find a way to express herself suited to her world. I can guide your daughter after class, or introduce specialized art classes. Not for competitions, just so Nora can communicate through drawings, she said, eyes lighting up. I listened, but my mind spun with thoughts of money, time, and risks. Therapy was already expensive, now art classes? How to pay? Take more time off work? Give me some time to think, okay? I said, voice hesitant. Mina nodded, looking at me with understanding. I get it, think it over carefully. I left the school, drawings in hand, mind full of confusion. On the drive home, I looked at Nora's drawings, trying to find value. Maybe she was drawing fear or joy. The anxiety made me drive slowly, thoughts wandering. In the days that followed, I thought nonstop, while noticing that since Nora drew more, she had fewer meltdowns, focused longer, and seemed to find a safe refuge for her emotions. At home, I left paper and pencils for her, and Nora began drawing, sitting for hours, strokes slow and deliberate. In those moments, Nora was calmer. Nighttime crying grew rarer. I quietly thought drawing had helped her find a way to self-soothe, and that idea warmed my heart. But financial worries still clung to me daily. The mounting loans, increasing work pressure. Some nights I lay tossing and turning, mind constantly calculating, should I sell the old TV or pawn the truck to scrape together a bit more money? Every choice carried greater fear. If I was wrong, if everything collapsed, what would happen to Nora? Amid that anxiety, I quietly watched her. Nora sat drawing for hours, eyes brighter than before, focused and peaceful, as if she had found her own voice. And for the first time in a long while, I dared to hope I was standing before a different path, even if I didn't know where it led. Finally, I decided to take the plunge. I accepted more work, sold and pawned the few valuable items left, with one sole desire: to give Nora a chance to pursue painting, even if the road ahead was foggy and full of risks. I told myself I had no other choice but to try. I called Mina, voice still hesitant but resolute, asking her to continue helping and guiding Nora. Afterward, I took on extra shifts, returning home exhausted, selling old things to scrape together every $100. The moment I signed the registration form for Nora's art class, my heart pounded so hard I could barely breathe. I knew it was a gamble. If it failed, I'd have nothing left to hold on to. But every time I watched Nora drawing, focused and peaceful, I knew the choice was worth it. The anxiety about the future remained, never fully easing. I didn't know where this path would lead us, father and daughter. But amid all the uncertainties, a small ray of hope had appeared, flickering like light at the end of a tunnel. Enough for me to keep moving forward without looking back. In the days that followed, I buried myself in work, taking on extra shifts, working through weekends, returning home physically drained but refusing to allow myself to slow down. I accepted every plumbing job I could, from emergency late-night calls to small projects in the Scranton suburbs. Some days I worked from dawn until deep into the night, drenched in sweat, my limbs aching as if pricked by needles. I have to earn money for Nora, I told myself whenever I felt like giving up, heart racing with worry. Would today's earnings cover her art class fees? Or would debts pile up again next month? I drove home in the darkness, body exhausted, but seeing Nora sleeping peacefully on her bed gave me renewed strength. On those nights, I lay awake, meticulously calculating every dollar, selling the old TV for $100, pawning Kira's remaining wedding ring for another $200. Everything felt like a tense race against time, fearing that one slow step would make all my efforts vanish. At the same time as my exhaustion, Nora made progress day by day, as Mina reported. She focused longer, had fewer meltdowns, and could sit drawing for hours in a stable state. Every afternoon when picking her up from school, Mina would pull me aside, voice excited. "Today, Nora drew an amazing picture, Mr. Bryan." She sat quietly for 3 whole hours without a single cry. Hearing that warmed my heart, but also made me anxious. Was this progress lasting, or just temporary? I observed her at home, Nora holding the pencil, strokes slow and deliberate, colors blending as if telling her own story. In those moments, she was calm, eyes brighter, no longer curling up as before. She's finding herself, I thought, tears welling up. But the pressure remained. I had to work harder to support her. Every story Mina told was like medicine, but it also left me anxiously awaiting tomorrow. Would Nora continue, or retreat into her old shell? Seeing my situation, Mina took the initiative to offer to watch Nora a few extra evenings a week so I could earn more income. It was a drizzly afternoon. I was late picking her up because a job ran long. Mina stood under the school awning holding Nora, smiling warmly. Mr. Bryan, I can see you're exhausted. Let me watch Nora 4 evenings a week. I live alone, I'm not busy. Her offer struck like lightning. I froze, heart racing with surprise and embarrassment. You wouldn't mind? I'm afraid people might talk about you, I asked, voice stammering. Mina shook her head. It's fine. I like Nora, she's special. I looked at her. Her eyes were sincere, without pretense, but fear crept in. Would I be imposing, or was this just pity? Anxiously awaiting my own answer, I hesitated for days, lying awake thinking. At first I shyly declined, afraid of intruding on Mina's private life and unwilling to accept more help. Thank you for your kindness, but I can manage, I said, voice firm but heart full of worry. I had been rejected by my parents, struggled alone, so accepting help felt like admitting defeat. Mina didn't push, just smiled. Think it over. I'm here if you need me. Those words haunted me. At night, when Nora slept, I thought about the debts, the art classes, heart pounding. I need help, I admitted, but feared becoming dependent, feared Mina would grow tired like Kira. That anxiety made me hesitate, like standing at the edge of an abyss. But her sincere, straightforward manner and the fact she lived alone without family obligations gradually made me accept her offer as a rare lifeline. Mina shared about herself. A young teacher, unmarried, living in a small apartment near the school, passionate about art and special needs children. I understand feeling alone, Mr. Bryan. Raising her by yourself isn't easy, she said once, voice gentle. Those words touched me, dispelling some fear. I nodded and agreed to let her watch Nora. My heart raced the first time I left Nora with Mina, driving to an extra job, anxiously calling to check. But Mina texted, Nora's doing fine. She's happily drawing. That time I breathed a sigh of relief, feeling rescued. Initial anxiety gradually turned to gratitude, though worry remained. Would Mina hold up or give up? Under consistent guidance, Nora's drawings began entering small local contests, then winning encouragement awards and special categories for children with needs. Mina guided her, teaching color mixing, pencil grip without forcing, letting her be free. I signed the first entry form, hands trembling. Will anyone notice? At a local Scranton contest, Nora won an encouragement prize, a swirling blue painting like a river of emotions. Hearing from Mina, my heart pounded. She won? We hugged and laughed. Nora stood beside us, silent but eyes bright. Achievements followed, special awards for children, paintings displayed in community halls. Each time I anxiously awaited results, lying awake imagining, would Nora be recognized or overlooked? Achievements built on achievements. Her art entered state-level contests, displayed in small Harrisburg galleries. From Scranton to Pennsylvania, Nora competed statewide, work hung in galleries. Other parents asked, she draws so well, how can a child like her do that? Art teachers praised, I call it innate talent. I stood by, proud but worried. Would crowds overwhelm Nora? I kept her away from spotlights. Only Mina guided. Each exhibition was a dramatic peak, anxiously awaiting feedback, fearing disappointment. But Nora progressed. Drawings grew deeper, like whispers from her private world. A few people began offering to buy paintings for modest prices, enough to cover art and therapy costs. To me, it was the first time the world recognized her effort. The first sale, $100 bought by a parent for their child. Holding the money, hands trembling. Nora, Daddy's girl is amazing. That money paid for classes, easing debt. Anxious accepting offers, would they regret it? But they praised, her paintings have soul and true artistry. To me, it wasn't the money, but recognition. Nora was no longer a burden, but an artist. Heart warmed, yet worried. Future uncertain. A small gallery proactively contacted us, offering to represent Nora's work on a trial basis, the first time I signed legal papers on her behalf. The gallery in downtown Scranton, run by an elderly art lover. Nora's work is special. We want her to paint for us, she said. I read the contract, heart racing. Legal complexities, fearing mistakes. Mina helped explain. I signed, hands shaking. This is a big step, I thought, anxiously awaiting outcomes. Gallery sales, money trickling in. Family finances gradually improved. I paid off short-term loans, no longer dreading therapy or class fees. Art sales, a few hundred monthly, covered costs. I cleared loan debts, bought new supplies for Nora. No more sleepless nights calculating money, but still anxious. Would this flow stop? Or Nora tire? Though life eased, I didn't let myself relax, maintaining strict routines so Nora wouldn't be disrupted. Meals on time, sleep on schedule, avoiding crowds. My daughter needs stability, I reminded myself, declining big exhibition invites, fearing pressure. Mina advised, "Don't rush, Mr. Bryan. Nora needs time to adjust." I listened, prioritizing therapy and mental stability, rejecting hasty offers that might stress her. A major gallery invited, I declined. Nora's not ready. Heart raced deciding, fearing missed chances, but she mattered more. I started a fund in her name, saving all art earnings for Nora's future. No spending on myself, no personal dreams. Bank account growing with each sale. For a better future or later therapy, I thought. I wore old clothes, ate simply but joyful for Nora. Anxious, watching balance rise. Enough? But hope grew. Watching her quiet growth, I gradually understood Nora's success wasn't money or awards, but finding a safe way to exist in this world, and I was determined to protect it at all costs. Nora drew, rare smiles appearing, eyes bright. She's happy now, I thought, tears falling. Future anxiety remained, but now with hope, the path blooming, though slowly. In the days that followed, after the community exhibitions and state-level awards, Nora's paintings began selling more steadily. Not with fanfare, but enough to create a stable flow. Her emotions visibly lightened. Fewer meltdowns, longer focus, and she actively sought out the easel whenever stressed. The first painting sold for $100, then $150, gradually reaching $200. Not large sums, but to me, each payment felt like an affirmation. The world was listening to Nora through her brushstrokes. I remember the third sale. A parent at the Scranton Community Exhibition held a swirling blue painting and said, "It reminds me of my own sadness." I took the money, hands trembling, thinking of the nights Nora drew late, forgetting to eat. Nora's progress was clear. She cried less at night, could draw for hours without needing me beside her. When stressed, she turned to the easel herself, strokes flowing like whispers. She's speaking to the world now, I thought, heart racing with joy mixed with worry. Would this attention overwhelm her? Or bring trouble? That anxiety made me more vigilant, reviewing every painting Mina submitted, fearing the spotlight would disrupt the peaceful routine we had just built. One day I received an invitation from a local station wanting to do a short feature on an autistic child finding her voice through painting, focusing on the intervention journey, family, and supportive environment, not emphasizing achievements or money. It was a Wednesday morning. I was fixing pipes at a small workshop when my phone vibrated in my pocket. "Unknown number," I answered, a young woman's voice. "Is this Mr. Bryan Foster? We're from WNEP, the local Pennsylvania station. We've heard about Nora and would like to do a short segment." My heart tightened. TV? A feature? I stopped working, cold sweat running down my back. "About my Nora?" I asked, voice shaking. She explained, focusing on the journey, not exploitative, just inspirational. I hung up, mind reeling. Fame had arrived, but I feared cameras, panicking Nora, words twisted. Anxiously waiting, I drove home thinking of potential issues, strangers asking questions, curious stares. Should I do this? That thought made my heart race faster. I hesitated, consulting Mina, weighing the psychological impact on Nora, only agreeing on conditions, filming in familiar spaces, short duration, no disruption to her routine. That evening, I met Mina at the school and told her. "What do you think?" I asked, voice worried. Mina thought, if controlled, it could be good for Nora, showing people autistic children have talent too. But prioritize her. We discussed for hours, Filming at home, just 15 minutes, no flash, no crowd. I called the station back, setting terms. Only in the kitchen and art area, Nora doesn't have to speak, and I review it first. They agreed. My heart pounded, signing the agreement. This was a turning point, but I feared Nora's fear. In the days waiting for filming, I prepared. Told her about it, drew with her, watched reactions. Nora was silent, but I saw her more tense, strokes messier. Am I doing the right thing? That anxiety felt like a ticking bomb, awaiting filming day. The segment aired soon after, low-key but enough for Nora's name to spread beyond the local art community, bringing inquiries, invitations, and curious glances from outside. Filming went smoothly. Gentle crew, questions to me about the journey, distant shots of Nora drawing. It aired Friday evening. I watched with Mina, heart racing. The story of Nora Foster, the autistic girl finding her voice through painting, the narrator said warmly. They told our story about Mina without exploitation. But afterward, my phone rang non-stop. Friends congratulating, galleries asking for work, even other reporters contacting. Nora was mentioned on local social media, her art spread. I was happy but worried. Bigger exhibition invites, interview requests. Fame came slowly along with troubles I wasn't mentally prepared for. Handwritten letters, strangers visiting, curious looks at the supermarket. Heart racing each time. Was this blessing or curse? One evening, as father and daughter ate quietly in the kitchen, there was a knock at the door. I thought it was Mina, as she occasionally visited at that hour. Simple dinner, pasta and salad. Nora eating slowly, me telling about her drawing that day. Soft knock, I wiped my mouth. Probably Mina bringing Nora's art. I stood feeling light. Mina often dropped by with treats or school stories. But when I opened the door, my briefly relaxed expression froze. Kira stood on the porch, thinner, neatly dressed. Black coat, hair tied back, eyes mixing hesitation and determination. My heart stopped for a second, blood rushing to my face. "You're back, Kira?" I whispered, voice breaking. She stood under the porch light, tired but still as beautiful as ever. All the bitterness and humiliation from when she left flooded back. The letter, empty closet, nights alone with Nora. My face burned. Instinctively, I wanted to slam the door and turn away. This can't be real. It only happens in dreams, I thought, gripping the doorknob tightly. Kira quickly asked for just one chance to talk. Her urgency made me hesitate, then reluctantly nod. "Brian, can we talk just once?" she said, voice trembling, eyes red. I looked at her. Memories surged. Happy days, then deadlock. Heart pounding, I opened the door wider, letting her in. Kira stepped inside. The house air suddenly grew heavy. Nora saw her and instinctively shrank back, curling near the table, eyes glancing like at a stranger, no sign of recognition. She clutched her spoon tighter, shoulders trembling. It pained my heart. Did Nora not remember her mother, or was she afraid? Kira paused, eyes tearing. My daughter's grown so much. But Nora didn't react, just sat still. The atmosphere tensed, anxious, like awaiting a storm. What did Kira want? Or was it illusion? We sat across from each other at the kitchen table. I didn't turn on more lights, just the dim yellow glow on the surface. Nora curled in her familiar corner, arms hugging knees tightly, not crying, but shoulders shaking slightly. Kira looked at her long before speaking. "I thought a lot before coming here," Kira said, voice choked. "Those years..." I was truly exhausted, Brian. The pressure of caring for Nora, work, everything piling up. I felt trapped, like in a sealed room with no exit. She took a deep breath, hands clasped tightly. Back then, I thought leaving would make things better for everyone. But I was wrong. Wrong from the moment I turned away. Kira looked up at me, eyes red. "I missed you both, every day. I know I have no right to ask anything, but I truly want to come back to mend things and to care for Nora." Tears streamed down. "I'm sorry, Brian. Sorry for abandoning you alone, sorry for not being strong enough. I want to make amends, even just a little." I listened silently, heart racing heavily. Her words touched my old pain, the exhaustion, deadlock, feeling of no escape I had experienced. I listened while watching Nora. She didn't cry, but shoulders trembled as if holding herself together. Maybe she had truly suffered, I thought, and my judgment slowed, but fear remained intact. I spoke, voice slow and cautious. If you suffered so much, why only return now? Kira bowed her head, silent long before continuing. I lived alone, Brian. Lonelier than I imagined. Every day was regret. I realized I ran instead of facing it. The kitchen air grew heavy, as if one wrong word could explode everything. I made no promises. I glanced at Nora, then back at Kira. I need time to think, I said slowly. Nora's just stabilized. I can't let her be disrupted again. Any decision puts her safety and stability first. Kira nodded, wiping tears. I understand, I'll wait. I won't force anything. She stood and left, leaving heavy silence behind. That night I lay awake long, mind reeling with one unanswered question. Kira's return, hope, or another danger? I told Mina everything. She only said gently, "Watch Nora. Her reactions will tell you more than any apology." In the weeks after, Kira returned a few times. She stayed restrained, not pushing, not deeply interfering. She brought small gifts, drawing books, colored pencils, then sat far away, quietly watching. At first, Nora remained curled up, keeping distance. But gradually she grew accustomed, no longer panicking when Kira appeared. And that fragile change made me waver, though I still held quiet caution inside. I observed, heart racing each time. Was Nora okay? Kira apologized often, shared her suffering, and only when seeing Nora undisturbed did I agree to let her move back in with us, though inwardly keeping silent guard. But fear lingered. Was she sincere? Or hiding something? Anxiously waiting, a new life began, full of drama and unease. In the days that followed, the three of us began living together again. But everything had lost its old rhythm. I still went to work as usual, still returned home on time. Yet the atmosphere in the house grew heavy and distant. Before, the house was warm, even with just father and daughter, filled with the sound of Nora's pencil strokes and the smell of simple meals. Now, with Kira back, the air felt shrouded in a fog. Early mornings, I got up to prepare food. Kira shuffled out of the bedroom, offering a brief greeting. No smiles, no hugs. We ate breakfast in silence, only the clink of spoons against plates. Nora sat between us, gaze vacant, looking at no one. I went to work, fixing pipes with a tangled mind. Would things be okay when I got home today? Or would something explode? Afternoons I returned on time, finding Kira on the sofa scrolling her phone, Nora in her corner. No laughter, no stories. The house was the same, but like it lacked oxygen, making me breathe heavily. Every night I lay awake, heart racing with worry. Was this life sustainable? Or just a fragile illusion waiting to shatter? Between Kira and me existed an unnamed void. Daily activities proceeded quietly, lacking connection, as if we shared the same space but belonged to different worlds. We slept in the same bed, but I stayed on the edge, back turned, not touching her. Old intimate gestures, a hair stroke, a goodbye kiss, vanished, replaced by polite words. We talked about the weather, bills, but avoided the past, the letter, her departure, the nights I cried alone with Nora. That void grew wider each day like a deepening chasm. I remembered our early marriage days, hugging and laughing, now only cold distance. My heart raced whenever sitting near her, should I ask, or stay silent to avoid conflict. That anxiety made everything tense, like walking on thin ice awaiting a crack. Nora didn't approach her mother proactively, nor seek comfort from her. She only seemed more comfortable and happier going to school to meet Mina. She sat at a distance from Kira, eyes avoiding, no hugs, no smiles. When Kira tried to get close, stroking her hair, "Nora, come to mommy." She curled up, pushed the hand away, turned aside. Seeing it pained my heart. Did Nora remember her mother? Or had she grown used to the absence? But at school, she moved faster, sat beside Mina drawing, eyes brightening. Mina told me, "Nora even smiled while drawing today, Mr. Bryan." At home, she was quieter, drew less. I worried, heart racing each morning, dropping her off. Was she okay with Kira? Or silently enduring? That fear built up, making me watch her closer, anxiously awaiting bad signs. Because Kira had returned, I had to apologize and explain to Mina that I could no longer rely on her to watch Nora, even though I knew deep down how vital that stability had been for her. It was an afternoon shortly after Kira moved back. I met Mina at the school after her classes ended. I spoke, voice slow and cautious. "Teacher Mina, I want to tell you something. Kira, my wife, has come back." I paused, then continued as if needing more courage. "So I think from now on I shouldn't trouble you anymore. With Nora's mother at home, continuing to ask you to watch her might make you uncomfortable. I don't want to put you in an awkward position, especially since Kira can care for her herself." After saying it, my throat felt dry. I knew I was saying logical things rationally, but my heart didn't fully believe the decision. I spoke, voice choked, eyes avoiding hers. Mina looked at me, eyes briefly sad. "I understand, Mr. Bryan. I also think Nora will be better with her mother." I apologized, heart aching. Mina had helped so much. Now I was pushing her away. Deep down, I knew Mina was Nora's anchor, the extra drawing sessions, the advice. Now what? Would Nora lose that? Anxiously awaiting consequences, I drove home, worried. Would Nora regress? Or would everything be fine? From then on, negative changes began appearing. Nora slept less, often waking at night, more easily startled and harder to calm than before. Previously, she slept well, rarely cried at night. Now, in the middle of the night, she woke screaming, convulsing. I rushed over, holding her. "Daddy's here. Breathe calmly, sweetie." But she took longer to settle, trembling more. Some nights, she stayed awake until morning, eyes red. I observed. She startled at Kira talking on the phone late. My heart raced. Why like this? Was Kira the cause? Fear surged, keeping me awake, anxiously awaiting the next night. Would she cry again, or worse? She gradually stopped drawing. Blank papers lay untouched on the table, the easel forgotten, as if her safe refuge had vanished. Before, Nora drew for hours, strokes flowing freely. Now she looked at the easel, shook her head, turned away. I tried encouraging. "Keep drawing, sweetie, don't you love it?" But she pushed the pencil away, curled up. My heart ached sharply. Drawing was her voice. Now lost? I remembered sold paintings, awards, now only blank paper. Anxiously waiting, I tried forcing her to draw, but she panicked. Why? I thought, fearing Kira returned and everything collapsing. Kira rarely asked about Nora's therapy schedule or psychological progress. If she joined, it was superficial, quick, without depth or patience. She came to a few clinic visits but sat outside scrolling her phone. "How's Nora doing, honey?" I asked. She shrugged. "She's fine, isn't she?" No questions to the doctor, no notes. I noticed, heart racing. Was she truly uninterested or pretending? Instead of childcare, Kira focused on calls, contracts, external connections. She talked late on the phone, whispering, "Yes, the art contract." I overheard, worried. What about Nora's art? Was she doing something? Unease crept in, making me anxiously monitor. What were those calls? Or something hidden? Not long after Kira returned, she began mentioning co-guardianship, talking about a mother's responsibilities and representing Nora in art contracts. It was a quiet evening. We sat at the kitchen table, Nora asleep early. Kira spoke first, voice light and seemingly reasonable. "Bryan, I think it's time I became co-guardian with you. After all, I'm her mother. For paperwork, art contracts, it would be more convenient for Nora if I signed too." Those words chilled my heart. It came too suddenly. I looked up, trying to stay calm. "Why bring this up now?" Kira smiled briefly but firmly. "Because I'm back. I can't stay on the sidelines forever." She continued about responsibility, the future, needing clear legal representation. But listening, I felt an offbeat rhythm I couldn't name. Her eyes lit up mentioning contracts, galleries, art sales, a different light than when talking about Nora. She asked about the gallery's progress, how art money transferred, whose name on the account. But she didn't ask if Nora slept well last night, had meltdowns, or still feared loud noises lately. My heart pounded. A cold feeling crept into my chest as I suddenly realized what Kira cared about wasn't Nora's sleep or fears, but paperwork and decision rights. And for the first time I wondered, did she really return for Nora, or something else? As doubts grew in my heart, I decided to turn to Mina, the person I had trusted and journeyed with as father and daughter all this time. We met at a small cafe near the school, a place so familiar I didn't need the menu. I told her everything, hiding nothing. Kira wants co-guardianship for Nora, I said, voice lowering. She also wants to represent and sign art contracts for her. What do you think? Mina was silent a few seconds, eyes fixed on me. When she spoke, her voice turned serious, losing its usual gentleness. Mr. Bryan, I don't want to be seen as wrecking someone else's family happiness, she said slowly. But think about it. Why did she return right when Nora started gaining recognition? Where was she before? That question hit me like a hammer. My hands trembled, holding the coffee cup, heart pounding hard. Mina continued, voice still calm but direct. I've seen a few similar cases. Some people return not for the child, but for what comes with the child. I just hope you're careful. I sat stunned, mind reeling. On the drive home, scattered memories began piecing together. Since Kira returned, Nora slept less, smiled less, then stopped drawing. Kira often called late, talking about contracts, paperwork, but rarely asked how Nora was that day. That thought chilled my spine. Was she not back for Nora, but for her paintings? For the first time since Kira returned, I clearly felt I wasn't just risking Nora's stability, but possibly losing the right to protect the most fragile thing I had painstakingly preserved. Nora, her talent, her future now threatened. I lay at night, mind spinning, anxiously awaiting evidence. Was Kira scheming? Or was I paranoid? That fear loomed like a shadow, making everything more dramatic, awaiting an explosion. In the days that followed Mina's warnings, I began paying closer attention to Kira's behavior. She always kept her phone with her, screen face down on the table. Before I thought it was just a habit, but now, every time I saw her holding the phone, my heart raced faster, as if awaiting a secret to be revealed. She never let the phone out of reach. Even during dinner, it lay face down under the table. A slight vibration, and she glanced at it. Late at night, when I was already in bed pretending to sleep to observe, I heard whispering from the bathroom or the porch. Kira called very softly, voice low, as if hiding something. Everything's fine. Just wait a little longer, I caught faintly through the door crack. Doubt crept in, keeping me awake, lying there analyzing every gesture. Anxiously waiting, I wondered, what is she hiding? Or is Mina right? Each night was torture. The room's darkness seemed to swallow me, awaiting the day the secret burst out. She frequently went out at fixed times, coinciding with my work schedule, saying she was meeting friends or handling errands, but never specifying where or whom. Mornings, as I prepared to leave for plumbing jobs, Kira said, I'm going to meet an old friend for a bit. I'll be back in the afternoon. No address, no name. I nodded, but unease filled me. Why always when I was at work? I started noting silently. Tuesdays, Thursdays, she left at 10 a.m., returned at 2 p.m. Heart racing whenever I drove to the shop, thinking about home. Nora alone with Kira? Or did she leave the child unattended? Fear surged, making work difficult, hands trembling, holding tools, mind unfocused. What is she doing out there? That thought cut like a knife, anxiously awaiting a chance to find out. I considered asking directly, but feared early confrontation, feared impacting Nora. Tension built, like an overinflated balloon awaiting explosion. One evening, I overheard Kira on the phone in the next room, voice low and unusually intimate. She lowered it further, sounding confident, mentioning everything was nearing the final stage, telling the person on the other end to be patient because the plan was almost successful. It was a Friday night. I had gone to bed early from exhaustion but wasn't asleep. Kira thought I was sleeping, went to the living room whispering, "Don't worry, darling. Everything's progressing well. Just be patient. The plan's almost done. Brian suspects nothing." My heart stopped hearing darling, then plan. I lay still, blood rushing to my head, ears ringing. She hung up, returned to bed, lying beside me as if nothing happened. I pretended to sleep, but my mind reeled. What plan? With whom? Fear turned to anger, but I suppressed it, awaiting evidence. That night dragged endlessly. I stared at the ceiling, heart pounding like war drums. Anxiously awaiting dawn, I decided I had to investigate. Bad premonitions urged me to secretly follow her, and I discovered that on weekdays when I was at work, Kira frequently left to meet a man outside. I started acting, asking to leave early a few times, pretending to forget something, returning home. One Tuesday, I parked a block away, saw Kira leave at 10 a.m., drive to a cafe near downtown Scranton. I followed, heart pounding wildly, cold sweat flowing. She met a man around 40, suited, looking like a lawyer or businessman. They sat close, whispering, hands touching. I took photos from afar, hands shaking. Oh God, is she cheating? But why return to me and Nora? I drove home, mind in turmoil. Subsequent times were similar. Meetings in parks, small hotels. That truth made me realize her apologies and reconciliation were just a cover for a premeditated plan. She returned for Nora's paintings, for money, not love. Heart aching sharply, anger surging. How dare she exploit my child? Anxiously awaiting the climax, I gathered evidence, fearing delay would lose everything. The climax came one afternoon when I returned earlier than expected and witnessed Kira forcing Nora to draw despite the child's panic and refusal. I had asked to leave early for a headache, parked down the street, entered quietly. Kira's voice came from the art room. "Draw, Nora. Mommy says draw. Why won't you listen?" Nora screamed, pushed the pencil away, convulsing on the floor. Kira gripped her hand, forcing it. "You have to draw for Mommy, understand?" I burst in like a whirlwind, heart pounding madly, mind blank. "Stop! What are you doing to my child?" I shouted, voice breaking with terror. Kira, startled, turned, still holding Nora's hand tightly. A tense struggle ensued. I pushed Kira away from her. "What are you doing?" she yelled, angry and flustered. "I'm just helping her. She needs to draw, don't you see?" But Nora had completely collapsed. She trembled violently, curling up like a cornered animal, sobbing uncontrollably, deaf to everything around. I held her tightly, feeling her tiny body shaking in my arms. Tears streamed down uncontrollably. I said, voice hoarse, "Leave. Don't touch my child again. Don't force her like that." The house air grew suffocating, tension so thick one more word could explode everything. In my mind, only one fear. If this continued, Nora would be permanently damaged. I allowed no more hesitation. That very night, I decided to take her away. I hurriedly packed essentials, carried Nora to the car as she still hiccuped softly, then drove straight to Mina's apartment on the Scranton outskirts. When Mina opened the door, seeing my ashen face and Nora in my arms, she froze. "Mr. Brian, what happened?" she asked, voice full of worry. I spoke quickly, voice trembling as if stopping would silence me forever. "About Kira. She forced Nora to draw. The child panicked. Please watch her for me. Just tonight." Without further questions, Mina took Nora from my arms, holding her familiarly and gently. "It's okay, Nora. Come inside with me," she said soothingly. "Come in. Let her calm down." In just a short time at Mina's, Nora gradually settled. She sat at the small table, picked up a pencil again, initial shaky strokes slowly steadying. I collapsed onto the sofa, hands clutching my head, feeling all strength drained. My mind reeled with hundreds of questions, but deep down, I knew one thing. I couldn't let this continue. In that suffocating anxiety, I understood it was time to end everything, though the road ahead would be far from easy. After hearing the whole story, Mina directly advised ending the situation before irreparable harm to Nora. We sat in the kitchen. I told everything. Late calls, meeting the man, forcing drawing. Mina listened, eyes serious. You must divorce and gain custody. Kira isn't here for love, but for Nora's art money. Those words confirmed my fear, heart racing. Divorce? Court? But Mina was right. Nora was regressing. I nodded, tears falling. Thank you. Anxiously awaiting the next step, I prepared documents. After many sleepless nights thinking, I decided to file for divorce and sole custody, ending all prior compromises. Those nights dragged. I lay at Mina's, reflecting on the past. Kira leaving, returning deceptively. I must protect Nora, I told myself, calling a lawyer. Filing at Scranton Court, hands trembling, signing, divorce, custody, heart pounding, anxiously awaiting trial. Would I win or lose her? At trial, Kira countersued for guardianship and legal representation rights, claiming I hindered the child's future and opportunities. Pennsylvania courtroom, tense atmosphere. Kira in a suit, lawyer beside. Brian is selfish, blocking me from mothering. I want guardianship to sign art contracts for Nora's development. I listened, trembling with anger. She was lying. Heart racing, anxiously awaiting my turn. My side countered with clear evidence. Kira's extramarital affair, years of sole caregiving and therapy attendance by me, plus expert testimony from Mina confirming I was the only one consistently transporting, monitoring therapy, and ensuring Nora's psychological stability. My lawyer presented evidence, photos of Kira meeting the man, call logs, therapy records showing only my involvement. Mina testified, Brian has cared for Nora throughout. Kira was indifferent. Forcing drawing caused panic affecting treatment. Moreover, Mrs. Kira abandoned the home for a period before returning. The judge listened. I sat, heart pounding. Was it enough? Or would Kira win? The evidence showed Kira had abandoned the child long-term, returned for legal and financial benefits, not prioritizing Nora's psychological stability. Lawyer emphasized, Kira left, returned after Nora's fame, seeking contract signing rights. Judge nodded. Kira's face paled. I anxiously awaited verdict, hands clenched. Finally, the court ruled I retain full guardianship. Kira restricted access and no financial or contractual representation rights for Nora. Mr. Foster retains custody, Mrs. Foster limited visitation. The judge's words felt like release. I cried, Mina patting my shoulder. Kira left court, eyes red. My heart gradually calmed, but anxiety about the future lingered. Was it truly over, or more trouble ahead? In the days following the trial, my daughter and I left behind all the commotion and returned to the familiar peaceful rhythm. The house gradually regaining the quiet we had both lost. We left the courthouse under the light drizzle of Pennsylvania. Mina drove us home because my hands were still trembling from the tense hours. Nora sat in the back, clutching her stuffed bear, eyes distant as if not fully grasping what had just happened. Back in Scranton, I opened the door. The familiar air rushed in, the smell of old wood, afternoon sunlight filtering through the curtains. No more Kira's late-night whispers, no more secretive calls. Just father and daughter, and the silence I had once craved. But that silence didn't come immediately. It was like a wound needing time to heal. I cleaned the house, discarding Kira's leftover items, a few coats, a bottle of perfume, each one a reminder of betrayal. My heart raced when touching them, anxiously wondering, will she come back demanding something? Or is it truly over? I called Mina to thank her, voice choked. You saved us. She smiled softly. You and Nora are the strong ones. In the early days, the house was eerily quiet, but gradually the old rhythm returned. Meals on time, Nora in her corner, and me going to work with a lighter heart. Yet fear lingered, making me check the windows every night as if awaiting a ghost's return. Nora needed time to recover, but little by little she regained her sense of safety, sleeping deeper and no longer startling awake at night. In the first weeks after the trial, Nora still cried at night, curling under the blanket, calling me with a trembling voice. I held her, singing clumsy lullabies, heart aching, remembering Kira forcing her to draw. "Daddy's here. You're safe now," I whispered, but she trembled long before sleeping again. I worried, heart racing each night. Would the wound heal? Or would she carry it forever? I took her to therapy more often, the doctor said. It takes time, but she's stabilizing. And it was true, bit by bit. A week, Nora slept past breakfast time. 2 weeks, no longer startled by small noises. I watched her sleeping, breathing steadily, face peaceful, and tears rolled down. I anxiously awaited. Would she cry today? Or was everything truly better? Those moments felt like a slow race, full of inner drama, awaiting signs of recovery. Blank papers were placed on the table again, tentatively at first. Then familiar strokes gradually appeared, as if she was finding her way back to her world. I bought new paper and colored pencils, placing them in her room without pressure. In the early days, Nora looked at the paper, touched lightly, then turned away as if fearing memories of being forced. My heart tightened. Drawing had been joy. Now fear. I sat nearby, saying nothing, just doodling beside her. "Daddy just wants to draw with you. Draw if you want, okay?" I said softly. At first hesitant, she held the pencil, one stroke, then stopped. But gradually, strokes lengthened, colors returned, swirling blues, vivid reds, like silent tales of pain and hope. One afternoon, I came home to find Nora at the table, drawing absorbedly, forgetting to eat. She's drawing again, I thought, tears welling, heart racing with joy mixed with worry. Would she stop? Or was this a new beginning? Those strokes were like a bridge, pulling her back to her private world. And I anxiously watched, awaiting the first complete painting after so many months. Mina returned in a supportive role, appropriately distant, appearing regularly and patiently, letting Nora approach when ready. After the trial, Mina visited more often, bringing treats or drawing books, but not staying long. "I can help if you need," she said, voice warm. I nodded, heart full of gratitude. Mina didn't push, just sat beside Nora when she drew, praising gently. "You draw so beautifully, Nora." At first, she avoided sitting far away, but Mina was patient, not touching, just observing. My heart raced each time Mina came. Would Nora open up or remain afraid of strangers? But Mina understood. She had taught Nora, knew her rhythm. Those sessions were like a slow dance, full of silent drama, awaiting Nora's step forward. Gradually, Nora grew more comfortable around Mina, often sitting closer, drawing longer and less stressed, as if finding a steady anchor. A month later, Nora sat beside Mina on the sofa herself, holding a pencil to draw together. She didn't speak, but shoulders relaxed, eyes brighter. I watched from afar, heart warming. Nora rarely smiled when Mina praised her art. My daughter trusts Mina more than her own mother, I thought, but anxiously wondered, was this a new family? Mina stayed later, helping put Nora to bed, telling gentle stories. Those moments accumulated like a calm river, making me realize the change, not just in Nora, but in myself. I recognized that change in my own feelings, a sentiment growing quietly without outburst or noise. It wasn't love at first sight, no romantic vows. It began from evenings Mina stayed late watching Nora, from how she understood my child, respected her rhythm, and cared for her like a true mother. Mina knew when Nora needed quiet, praised art without pressure, hugged gently when allowed. I watched her sit beside Nora, patiently waiting for her to draw, and my heart stirred. Not passionate frenzy, but deep warmth. On evenings Mina stayed, we talked late, about Nora, art, life. Heart racing when she smiled, but I didn't rush, fearing disruption, fearing loss. Anxiously waiting, I let feelings grow like a sapling in silence. It began from evenings Mina stayed late watching Nora, from how she understood my child, respected her rhythm, and cared for her like a true mother. I remembered the first time Mina stayed. Nora cried at night, Mina soothed. Draw with me? She calmed, drawing late. I sat in the kitchen watching them, heart full of gratitude. Gradually, Mina became part of life, helping with therapy transport, advising on Nora's art. She understood autism better than I, respected her pace. No forcing speech, no forced hugs. Mina is like Nora's real mother, I thought, heartwarming. But feelings grew through small details, a smile, an accidental touch. I didn't name it, fearing illusion, just letting it bloom quietly. Anxiously awaiting the moment, I wondered, does she feel the same, or just helping? I didn't rush, didn't name the feeling, just letting it grow over time along with the peace Mina brought to us both. Month after month, Mina visited often, stayed for dinner, helped Nora draw. We talked everyday things, my work, her teaching, Nora's progress. No romantic dates, just companionship. That peace was like medicine. Nora slept well, drew more, I smiled more. Heart racing when Mina touched my hand, but I waited for ripeness. Anxious like awaiting a flower's bloom, I knew this love was solid, unflashy. Their affection formed naturally, quietly, without show or promises, just steadfast companionship through ordinary days. No flowers, no gifts, just afternoons, Mina drawing with Nora while I cooked. No confession, just being. Affection grew over time. Mina helping through tiring days, me listening to her stories, gentle like a river, no storms. Anxiously awaiting the next step, I knew this was true love. 2 years later, when everything felt ripe, we held a small, simple, quiet wedding, full of belonging. It was a spring morning in a small Scranton park with just a few close people. Nora stood beside Mina in a cute flower girl dress, holding her hand tightly, calm and safe. Mina wore a simple white dress. Soft sunlight on her hair made her smile extraordinarily gentle. I held her hand, feeling my own tremble. I can't promise you a perfect life, I said slowly, voice hoarse with emotion. But I promise to stay on easy days and the hardest ones. Will you walk with me? Mina looked at me long, eyes sparkling, then nodded softly. She said, voice small but firm, yes, as long as you're there like you've always been for Nora. No big reception, no loud music. Just a warm family meal afterward, soft laughter, tight handholds. When I slipped the ring on Mina's finger, my heart pounded so hard I could barely breathe. For the first time in so long, I understood belonging. Not flashy, not showy, but solid. I still thought about the future with very human anxiety, but this time worry no longer overshadowed happiness. Because I knew after all the loss, we had chosen each other and stayed. Our life afterward wasn't perfect, but stable and warm in its own way. Nora continued drawing, therapy growing in a safe environment where she was heard and respected. We lived simply. I still plumbed, Mina still taught. Nora drew and sold paintings little by little. We weren't wealthy, but enough not to fear daily. Nora grew, drawings matured, therapy progressed markedly. Most importantly, she lived without pressure, where Mina understood her and we always respected her rhythm. Hard days still came, but this time we weren't alone. We faced them together slowly and patiently. Initial anxiety faded, giving way to peace, the peace I once thought I'd never have again. One quiet afternoon, I leaned against the doorframe, silently watching Mina sit beside Nora, drawing together in soft sunlight. Light filtered through the window, falling on their hair, warm and slow. Mina leaned in, smiling at Nora, praising softly as if afraid to break the moment. I stood there, tears quietly falling, old memories gently returning. The day Kira left, cold trials, desperate nights, and Mina appearing at the right moments. In that instant, I simply thought, thank you, life, for not turning away from me. I gradually understood family isn't always blood or titles. Sometimes family forms from those who choose to stay when everything collapses, when there's nothing left to promise but exhaustion and hurt. Mina didn't give birth to Nora, bore no obligatory duty, but she chose to stay, patiently, quietly, without demands. To me, that was true family. I also learned true love isn't possession or control, but protecting the peace of those you love. I protected Nora with all I had. Mina protected us with understanding and gentleness. No forcing, no commanding, just choices for each other's safety and happiness. To me, that was love. The greatest lesson I carry: don't let titles, power, or legal papers obscure true responsibility. Children don't need signers. They need those who understand, listen, and stay when most afraid. Kira had rights, papers, but didn't understand Nora. Mina needed no title, yet understood her deepest. And if I could leave advice for my past self, or anyone facing hard choices, always choose the child's safety and stability. All lasting happiness starts there. I chose that, though the path wasn't easy. And that choice brought me here today. Peaceful, fulfilled, no longer afraid.